Hey everybody, welcome to Better Car Washing Everywhere. This is the podcast for you if you are a car wash professional or maybe you're just car wash curious. All right, so we're going to get into a lot of things going on in the car wash industry. We're talking trends, we're talking stories, but most importantly, we're just talking car washing with our friends. So today I want to talk about something that is kind of a passion point for me, and that goes back to talent and people in this industry. And one of the things that we've kind of seen over the last 5 to 7 years with all of the people that have come into this industry, it feels a little bit like there weren't enough of us, right? There wasn't enough to go around to help kind of grow this thing. So we're going to unpack that a little bit. And you could sit and listen to me unpack that for a long time, and you might get a little bit bored. So I'm bringing on a friend to join me. Joining me is Jeff Fazio from Preferred Car Wash Advisors. And yes, before any of you ask, that Fazio family. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
So explain to everyone, you are of the car wash royalty Fazios. Give us a little bit of the background.
Yeah, so I'm a fourth generation car washer. So my great grandfather and grandfather started washing cars in 1949 in Boston. Actually, got it to 2 locations. And so my father bought my grandfather's car wash. Sonny, my grandfather, moved to South Florida to retire, like 1978. And that lasted like 2 weeks before my grandmother kicked him out. I was like, no. And so, he started making parts and supplies. And so concurrently, Dad goes from like 1 car wash to like 7 to ultimately 13. And so I was growing up Massachusetts. And so at 11, I started working at our car washes. So from there, I grew up watching multi-site, multi-state, full-service car washing, gas, C-store, detail. And Dad actually did a roll-up with Wash Depot at the same time that Mister began their run. So starting to get into high school, I'm to see my dad, I got to go travel with him. So all my spring breaks are, Texas, Phoenix, California. We're going to places where they're buying car washes. And I'm starting to see like Fazio Enterprises people in different states running territories. So I was fortunate to grow up around this. I had no choice, But what I saw is playing out and has continued to play out in our industry. Roll-ups, consolidation, understanding what you're buying, how to make it work. So I witnessed that growing up. Paul naturally and my father, Sonny got Sonny's bigger than he wanted it. And Paul drove it to what it is today. So the point is like, I was so fortunate to grow up in a family that was down this path, multi-generational, unbelievable network. Got to learn from so many mentors that it's what's made me, kind of like who I am today. So I graduated college. I spent 12 years at Sonny's while Sonny's was going through exponential growth. 2002 to 2014. I would liken it to like when print media went digital. Exterior Express with automation, like pay stations, tire shines. And the retail side is still good. It was really good then because competitive intrusion and the model changing, like full serve, if they wash 100,000 cars, that was like a great full serve, 200,000, 250,000, 300,000, numbers that we weren't used to doing, evolved the equipment line to handle it. And all the back end policy procedures then taught through Car Wash College. So it was a great incubation period during that 12-year run around literally some of the best minds. I mean, Paul Fazio and Anthony Aletto were running our equipment sales meetings. And they would travel all over the world and data dump all the videos, all the pictures, go through the drawings, and really get a first-hand education on like how to design a tunnel and actually how to wash a car. And so I was fortunate to go through sort of entry level into like equipment sales and then Southeast Regional Sales Manager. So naturally the Tri-County area gets to be my projects. And because they're, kind of backed by the factory and show places, it was like, I got all new equipment, like we were going to try stuff. So I got to learn firsthand without a middleman distributor, who, by the way, I worked with some amazing distributors throughout the Southeast. So in any event, I just got firsthand experience, and because they were show places, Anthony and Paul were a part of those projects. So I got to learn from guys who came from the hands-on how to do it. I didn't know enough then. Like I was getting a first-rate education that would later serve like what I'm able to do today. I just kind of like, wow, this is cool. To a point where it became like, you just got. I did over 200 projects in 12 years, and Sonny's keeps count of that. But there were guys that were doing that many or more. But we were always rubbing elbows, evolving the offering to the consumer and how we were going to increase, package pricing and deliver a better shine. I mean, like even cloth technology from beginning to where we are today has come so far, and the chemistry did it as well. And so, quantifiably, especially when we got good at water treatment, quantifiably, you could see a better bond to a car. I think that's more common today. I see that more regularly today. That wasn't always the case. And so, you just got so many at bats. So anyway, so 2014 comes. It's been 12 years. I did national account sales. National account sales for Sonny's for 2 years was amazing. I got to travel the country to work with some of the best out there. So whether Mr. Zips, Goo-Goos, Tidal Wave, Brown Bear, it was a phenomenal experience. I stopped calling my dad after some of my Southeast regional trips because it just kind of was sort of the same. But when you start going to see double tunnels with a dog wash in a chapel, like I'm calling him going, wow, like who does that? You know what I mean? Like it was amazing. So
wait. But you can't just drop that out there and leave it. Who's got the dog wash and the chapel?
The original developer. I think I know the name, but not to make a mistake, I'm not sure, but it was a Mr. owned property at that point in rural Pennsylvania, Amish country. Okay. So horse and buggy stuff where I was with Ron Lick, where I'm like, where are we again? But it was amazing. So long story short, 2014, I leave Sonny's as the director of inside sales running the equipment sales division, which at the time might have been like a $36 million division. I learned so much during that time, super appreciative of the opportunity, had an opportunity to do a car wash locally in South Florida. It actually was adjacent to where my grandparents were buried. It was a customer of ours who unfortunately the bank foreclosed on it. So long story short, it was just sitting there. And so I ended up doing that project. But as I was about to close my SBA loan, I found a second site. And the second site was way better than the first site. And the SBA wouldn't do two projects. And I said to my dad, like, there's just no way I'm going to pass up on this site. And so my dad owned and operated car washes in South Florida. So I started talking to him about roads and streets. Like, he still, comes down here. So it's like, so he immediately was like, let's do it together. I was like, okay, here we go. So they were amazing. Jeff's Express, loved it, did it for 8 years. Probably the best thing about it was everything that I learned out of a textbook. No, I don't want to say none of it applied. Some of it applied, but you on the job, there's no better training than on the job. Everything I thought, everything I learned out of a classroom didn't quite fit in that box once you start operating. I was fortunate to have an amazing team. I loved my guys. And, it just, competitive intrusion's a real thing. And so by year 8, I had so many dropped on me that finally one came like way too close. And I'm like, I just don't know. And so there was an opportunity to exit. We exited. And although I'm happy with my decision because it's led to more growth opportunity, when the phone stopped and I didn't have car washes to go to, trespassing on a car wash became a real thing. Where they're like, so what are you doing? I'm like, man, I don't have a car wash to go to. So I knew that I wanted to do something. And Bill Martin was with Amplify, and that was a great opportunity to learn more about M&A and hand capping portfolios throughout the country. And I said to myself, if I ever wanted to follow like my father's footsteps and run like a multi-unit nationwide chain, you'd have to get good at that. And I would need more at-bats at that. So I spent a year and a half on those calls and did operational consulting, and it was a great learning experience. I definitely appreciated my time there. It was a great education, and it solidified, more of my thoughts on just M&A and just kind of even where we are today. So I started a consulting company. It was the easiest jacket to put on, having done it for Sonny's for so many years. Because the reality is like we were consulting, but just more on equipment. My Southeast Regional sales days, it was not only equipment, it was installation, it was service. I had install crews that did our work naturally, but also for a short period ran Sonny's service department, which consisted of really like maybe 4 guys and 2 trucks. But so I got like the full gamut. And I knew that I could consult and add value back to something we're going to talk about. So I've been active for like the last X amount of years out there doing consulting. And I'm looking around going like, okay, when I was like 15 going to trade shows, there'd be a whole bunch of guys there that looked like they were like at a car wash.
Yeah.
Jeans, boots, flannels, overalls. I can tell you in the Southeast, a great group of guys. You ever want to have a good cocktail at the bar with a bunch of good guys? So the Southeast were like, kind of like my people. And a lot of them are gone. And so I not only see it on the operating side, but I see it on the OEM side. And so when you got new plus new, some of the decisions, especially when you're scaling, and now you're taking a step back going, okay, wait a minute, we're trying to understand some of our numbers and stuff. Like things aren't exactly maybe what we thought. And this is where it's just like, oh man, it's like our industry has shelved a lot of great mentors from mentoring. And I've got a list here of like, I can't even tell you how many names of people I could pay homage to. Like it's literally the reason I'm here. So it's like, there's a lot of great folks who are working hard, well-intentioned. They're just not rubbing elbows with enough senior folks. And that's like the slow curve on development. But we just had exponential growth like the last 10, 12 years to a point of numbers in an industry, new to industry, like way bigger than, we were used to seeing. And so it's a little interesting out there.
Well, what's fascinating as we talk about this, right? It's like there was a way that car washing was, right? Like there's this nostalgia for like how the industry ran and what it was like and the people who were kind of building this thing up from the ground and creating and evolving. And, that just was a very spirited, very entrepreneurial minded space that was very collaborative, right, in general.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about those mentorship opportunities and you think about the people who were bringing others along, well, when you start to grow too fast as an industry and look, all this growth is great. Like it's been great for a lot of people.
Yep. 100%.
But it's like any business, when you grow too fast, you miss some stuff along the way. And so because this growth has been so exponential, you start looking at those people who were spending the time to collaborate and to create relationships and to mentor others along the way, and you get some of these exits and they leave industry, you're missing some of the most important stakeholders of the whole thing, right? Like you're losing history, you're losing information, you're losing the way things are done. And not just like not just from the perspective of like, oh my gosh, I want to keep things run the same way they've always been run, but there's institutional knowledge and some nuance to this industry when you try to, even when you're trying to go and say, well, maybe I've successfully scaled a retail environment to 1,000 locations, 2,000 locations, but that's not a car wash situation. Like those demographics are different. And I think that that's kind of where we sit today. What do you think?
It's a ground game. It's won in battle every day at the street. It's what you do every day to satisfy a customer that's going to come at best once every 3 to 4 months. You know, I mean, naturally redemption, and we can look at license plate recognition and, you know, how often they're redeeming. The point is it's every day. It's every day. How good can you block and tackle? You know, I'm in my market. I consider, you know, it's kind of funny. You think about the top 100 operator list, how that's changed. Anybody who's like 50 and over, I'm just going to call a major. So I got majors in my market. And I mean, what you were referring to before were people that had personal guarantees on mortgages on businesses that were operating every day. So they're there. So the ground game's going to be good. If they even, this is where the mentoring comes, because I've met so many people out of industry who got into industry, who love the industry, who kind of grew from that. You know what I mean? And again, boots on the ground, they're there and they're learning. In the Southeast, you know, again, I'm a Northeast guy and was educated in the Southeast and then have lived in the Southeast for the last 20 some odd years. The Southeast was a very sharing community. The Northeast was not. Still kind of not. Southeast would tell you anything you needed to know. So those guys that were new, who were in the Southeast, were in a community who would share. And you heard success stories over the body of work. I'm not going to name names, but like it would be a good naming of name because they're a great success story. Through the years of them being a part of this community, other senior members of other organizations, mom and pop, who have grown into some sort of size, were bringing these operators up, making them better in a good way. It's when I see that entire group gone, I go, I could tell you about some of their managers underneath who had been with them for decades. And actually, some of those guys are now leading organizations. Makes total sense to me. But I just, you know, some of these guys are still kind of young enough. So that's the part where I go, wow, two things just happened that are kind of fascinating, right? So private equity invests significantly in our space. And for some that wanted to stay on, they elevate. They're out of more of the day-to-day. Now they're kind of up more corporate. And so they're a little further from the ground game, right? But then others, they just left the industry. But when you think about the core car wash member attrition and how high that is, right? You know, it's just like it's a set of variables that make you question certain projections. Because the reality is, it's those on site. I'm at a Majors yesterday and I'm in the vacuum area and I'm looking and I see down there that there's a hose drip from a boom. And it's affecting the rest of the line. You know what I mean? And I just go like, I mean, that's probably not a big deal. It's a huge deal to me. Because I was always taught everything's got to work every day. And like, by the way, like selling equipment, I learned not everybody's end game is clean, dry, and shiny. And that floored me. I just, for the life of me, like had to be taught that. I'm like, are you kidding? They're like, no. And so, again, I was taught, like, the car's got to be immaculate coming out. Everything on site's got to work. And you got to take care of your employees. And I'm not so sure it isn't like employees first, then the customer, then the equipment. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, but it's kind of in that pecking order because we can build a Taj Mahal, but if there's no one to open the doors, then okay, who's coming in? So kind of in a way, but And so when I say these things, like, this isn't me. I'm not that smart. Okay. My people are that smart. And they taught me enough of this to where when I saw version A versus version B, I could pick it up in a matter of like minutes. Where like engaged owner, not engaged owner. You know, I bet you the P&L reflects that engagement. The busybodies on site, and I don't really see any embedded trash, and the car's coming out good. Like, you know, listen, the pizza's got to come out for the kitchen good. Otherwise, how do you expect to retain a member, grow revenue, grow membership? Like, so by proxy, to do that is super tough.
Yeah.
Super tough. Yesterday, I was in a tunnel calibrating new managers, their eyes on how a car should brake. And they're like, okay. I'm like, all right, go kick the well water back on. Like, see the difference? Like, So, you know, that level of detail being taught is, I see the challenges that are out there. Again, well-intentioned people, totally. So,
well, and I mean, I think the thing. So let's go toward kind of how we got here, right?
yeah.
So, you know, everybody knows because we talk about it all the time. We grew. This industry grew. There was a lot of money coming in, which meant exponential location growth, and at the same time, a lot of consolidation. So, on the one hand, it's like, well, great. The industry took a major shift toward the express model, which means less labor. That's fantastic. Well, what you also saw happen was all of a sudden an increase in minimum wages all over the place, right? So that comes in. So labor gets more expensive. You also see this shift in who you're competing with for your people, because the industry shifts from the kinds of people it needs to hire, where traditionally it was like, well, I kind of need like somebody who can turn a wrench, and you know, they're not going to do a lot of customer interfacing stuff most of the time, to I need people who are like customer centered and can be front lines and talking to people and creating relationships. So all of a sudden our competition got much more intense for who we were trying to attract to work in the wash. And at the same time, there was labor shortage everywhere. So all of a sudden there's all of these washes who need good people.
Yeah.
And there's not enough people to bring in, one. And two, there's not nobody, but there aren't enough people in those spaces to bring people along and to kind of build that up over time. So where did everybody go, Jeff?
So I think it's addition, not subtraction. I think there's attrition, which is normal. I just think there's significant addition. And again, I just want to level set on staff sizes, since the significant push that is, and it should be, rightfully so, for memberships, has only grown staff levels per location. Because as you start putting a schedule together, I was able to do stuff at, you know, maybe 320 man hours, pre-memberships. Post-memberships, it was significantly higher because now you're staffing the pay stations. And so now you're redevising your team, right? So like on a football team, I mean, listen, I'm going to play quarterback. I need some offensive linemen. Give me some skill position folks, and like, let's go play some football. So here it is different because you're like, not only do you need customer facing folks, but like, let's give them a script and talk about stuff they've never heard before, like ceramic or graphene, and explain how Carnauba wax is going to bond to your 2010 Toyota Camry. So it's like, you know, and then, you know, a professional trainer, like, they're never done. They always train. So now this significant need for like training beyond standard operating procedures, which is technically a manual that sits there and never really does anything. Maybe I incorporate some checklists to help the day-to-day operation. That was training. And then those who believed in Car Wash College and wanted to advance training said, listen, I think it's better that we have some great folks who are mechanically inclined And, whether it's NCS or Sonny's, like car wash colleges are readily available depending on OEM, but like, you know what I mean? So I think it's more complex. Destiny Baker, head of training and development for Mammoth last week, this time was on a podcast or a LinkedIn Live with Thrive, their LMS. I mean, dude, that's like gold. That stuff's gold. That. So I have a great relationship with a guy by the name of Dave Hale, who is with Mr. and is now an advisor for Sonny's. And so we did consulting engagements together. I learned so much from him. I've known Dave for a long, long time, but to work alongside him and travel for 2 years was like unbelievable. So the point is like he had said something to me recently about we were using like homemade LMSs before like we ever settled on like a real one. The point is that's what's needed. It's the requirement. I have done engagements with like gas. By the way, we're like a gas family too. We've been in the gas business since like the 70s. So like, but like there can be a contradiction in that world about what is like a car wash a loss leader or is it like a real thing or what? So kind of my point in all this is like, it's the requirement. These businesses have a heavy mechanical requirement. This business model puts sophisticated layers on this, now requiring an LMS type model. And so as long as you're aware of the game that we're playing, then I think that, you're more receptive to like, I guess I got to learn about Thrive, a popular LMS system that one of the majors has taken in that I'm sure others are going to take a look at, So I'm not so sure where did all the people, on one hand, subject matter experts, both on the OEM side and the operator side, as we've discussed, some of them have left, okay? They had a great run, they did what they did, and like maybe they come back, I'm not really sure, but they're no longer mentoring their tree as much, if you will. And what's interesting is even the consolidation on the OEM side, a lot of those guys are no longer mentoring on the supply side. So innovation to keep us going forward may come slightly slower because now we lost a little of that inherent subject matter expertise. That's where I think we lost. I think the gains of all these sites and a roster now that's bigger has put us in a slight situation. And I think I've only ever seen evolution. Okay. So if I'm professionally doing this 4 years, right? I've been around a car wash since I was like 11. All I've ever seen is evolution. There'll always be constant evolution. It's just, where does it come from? And we've had so much out of industry, which is completely appreciated. That's amazing. And hopefully those with a different set of eyes, but challenged because they're boots on the ground, can help more innovation.
That's really interesting. It makes me think about, I talk a lot about, bringing in outside perspectives for stuff, right? It gets really easy when you're living in your lane and you stay in it and all you ever do is think about that one thing. If you're not looking outside to bring in new viewpoints, you're never going to be able to do some of that innovation, some of that evolution. And I think it's a double-edged sword. We've got a major investment of dollars, and with money comes innovation, at least from a technology perspective initially. The challenge then becomes, though, right? These groups, everybody's they want to get return. They need to give value for all that money they put in, all that capital. And what you end up with, I think, or at least what I'm seeing a lot of, is that it's homogenous. You're getting a little bit more of a homogenous feel for some of the groups that are a little bit more consolidated, and some of these groups that have gotten larger. It's just harder to maintain that kind of essence of entrepreneur when you're that big and when you get to that point.
So that resonates significantly with me because really, in my time in the industry as a young professional at Sonny's, we were really catering to the mom and pops. And I think about it, if I was there 12 years, they were operating before me, they still didn't have a national accounts position until like my 10th year. You know what I mean? Or like 8th year or whatever. So that's like, but those folks are on property. And so I recognize the requirement from a mechanical standpoint. It is complex, especially for those who don't know what they're looking at. So to try and diagnose, I was at a majors 2 weeks ago, and again this week, the air compressor is still down because there's no air going out to the vacuum area. So these are some of the things that I look at and I go, I'm sure there's a process and it's in, you know what I mean? But the owner operator is just there livid, on the phone, screaming, yelling until, guess what? Compressed air is coming out of that compressor, man. That's just the difference. And so, you know, whether it's as a consumer, you know, why do they choose this car wash over that car wash? Well, if you're going to offer something and that they're paying for and yet it doesn't work, like there's only so much of that before they're like, value proposition gone. I mean, like, yeah. I do caution the build it and they will come and we are, you know, resilient, resistant to everything, because we're not. We're not. Like, if I, you know, again, selling equipment for as long as I did, there were plenty of car washes that had passed hands numerous times for good reason. Mm-hmm. And like, I'd have a client be like, so what do you think? You're like, what do you want me to tell you? You want me to tell you that it's good and that it's on its fifth owner? Like, I don't think that's the case. Otherwise, you know. So not every car wash that's out there should have been built.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Like, listen, they've South Florida, they'll repurpose that land so fast, like, no problem. Kills me. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So.
Yeah, which is too bad, because it was they fought the fight to get it zoned right, you know, and then now it's like, sorry.
So I'm fighting that right now to get one zoned right, and it's like, you know, it's real. I mean, that's that's something that, you know, when times were good and those properties were purchased, going through entitlement, there's a significant lag there. And so by the time 22, 23 hits, it still looks like from an industry perspective, we're growing and we're not. That lag time just caught up. I mean, that's one of the things in an OEM world, you know, you're taking deposits on projects that you're aware of because you've been doing drawings for months. So you're aware of like where they are in the development cycle. So even that makes me go, I just think in a high interest rate environment, like this is some revelation, but in a high interest rate environment, there's just going to be less and less. Like, it just is what it is. Like, right. And this is going to be this way. And then it's like EBITDA is a real thing. And the math starts to get tight. And then it really becomes like, we need more memberships. And it's like, oh man, you know, depending on where you are in the human capital development chain and how many you've got, is sort of a precursor for how quickly this can unravel on you.
Yeah.
A car wash can turn so quickly. It really has to do with age of equipment, kind of where you are in its life cycle, what you've done, and like what's going on. Like, you know, even talking to my clients about prepping for pollen season, and you know you're going to be busy.
Right.
So like, what does that mean? You know it's coming. What it means to me is tell me we're staffed, tell me they're trained, tell me we're good from an equipment standpoint. We got our wash process dialed, like we're on all KPIs ready for it. We've prepared. Tell me you didn't like not prepare. You know what I mean? So, but you know, easy, you know, 1 and 2 up to 5, and then, you know, part of what we've, you know, the engagements that I've done is to help build out a corporate infrastructure. And that's a revelation to those who are maybe focused on another, you know, retail segment, automotive, yes, but not car washing, to where they're like, you know, if you've got 10 operating and you've got one district manager and a service guy in a truck, you're like, well, those guys are getting crushed. Unless you've got superhero managers who are picking up, you know, a solid 20% of the maintenance and yet giving them plenty of time on stuff that's in some state of failure. And that they'll be there to help the technician do the repair work. You know what I mean? I mean, like, those are aspirational. That doesn't happen. I've met with more maintenance teams that are like, when we get the call, it's been so broken that it's beyond broken. Like we're straight into torches, cutting stuff up. What they just called when it was squeaking, we probably had a chance to just replace some bearings. But it's like, so that's what I mean about like, and again, retail segment strong. Retail segment strong. I mean, that's why I want to, help operators be successful and get the most out of it, because the expense is the expense. It's significant. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, when we're thinking about, so like you just said, you want to help the operators get the most out of it. So knowing where we are and knowing that we've got a little bit of a talent gap that exists, what are some things that I need to be doing if I'm an operator? Where should I be focusing energy? Like, how do I fill that
yeah. Gap? So talent development is definitely, I think, out there outside of just, researching books and brushing up on your communication skills. I mean, you got to kind of understand. So being around car wash folks all my life, those are like my people. I can talk, like I can understand, like it's like, and I will tell you, owning and operating was great because you got to help a lot of people who didn't have quite the same opportunities as maybe you did. And so they're just as hungry. They just need opportunities. And so you start helping them present opportunity, and then they capitalize on it. And then it becomes this intrinsic win-win for everybody. That's super tough, spread out, many, many locations. But in this private equity kind of scenario, I believe that the individual owner operator can not only succeed but thrive if they defend their corner. So training is definitely one of it. Your ability to communicate, hire. I just think, I developed my own LMS. Like it ended up, it was a whiteboard session with me and my managers. Like, let's train. How do we train? Car Wash College has taught us how to train. Let's train. We're going to test people. How do we test people? What questions will we ask? Where would we look to train? What do we want to train? And then before you know it, there's 8 tests later. And you're like, oh my God, this is a actual way in which to develop good talent looking for an opportunity. And you know what? Everybody wants to make more money. Frankly, I want to pay you more money. You know what? But I'll pay you more money if you end up providing more value. Which is like, okay, great. How do I get that value? And you're like back to the business owner, like, now I got to figure it out. But I know for me, Sonny's was the type of organization to send us to all sorts of training. Dale Carnegie, integrity selling, management training. You got to do the same thing. So whether it's Car Wash College, I had a manager who I felt like, could continue to grow, but needed some of that, training offsite, through a management type, services. And so, you do these things. The hard thing is like, there's no contracts. You know what I mean? I mean, really, it's, you gotta be able to connect with kind of like your people. You know what I mean? And you gotta realize they're there with you for a period of time. When you're an owner operator, you're the last guy there. You're the first guy there, you're the last guy there. So the time that they're with you, try and enrich their life. I feel like those relationships get better, when you're able to just kind of make better connections. In any event, when you're a larger organization, now you need to reach the masses, and how do you do that? And when I heard, about Thrive's LMS and just the ability through apps to connect with the workforce and drive central communications, that's in a larger organization pretty commonplace. Therefore, and I think there's tremendous advantage for those who are with PE-backed companies to continue to grow. Because let me tell you, these groups spin off more work than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done enough engagements where just the construction and real estate development and procurement part of it is enough to make you go, wow. I mean, it's a whole lot of work. And it's fascinating to see some of the designs that architects put together when they're given like, hey, you got a 110 and you got a 130-foot package, like go. Like forget about turn radiuses and process flow optimization and the whole 9 yards. So what I'm saying is like there is advancement opportunities in larger organizations because they spin off so much work. Now, I think there's always a time and a case where you can reach out to consultants, whether in industry or out of industry, for a certain area that you want your team to grow in. I mean, I first saw that when I was 15 years old. We hired Steve Gaudreau, a car wash consultant, to come in and do greeter training at my dad's, Fazio Enterprises at our full serve car washes. I mean, so there's ways to grow your talent. I think that, you just got to try to connect with your talent. And I'm always encouraged when I see regional meetings for the majors. I think that's incredibly important. Even from a micro, by the way, the micro is the macro. What happens at the micro, okay? Yep. At the macro level when you're looking down, that's what's going on. So what happens on site, that's what you're looking at P&L wise from the macro, right? So staff meetings at a location provide an opportunity for those to feel vested, to voice their opinion, to be heard, to collaborate, to contribute. So just encouraging that. It's like, okay, let's do that. It's like, okay, who knows how to put on an effective meeting? It's like, I should have an agenda, shouldn't go longer than an hour. They are going to get paid. And if you brought in food, I'm sure you'd get larger attendance. But it's those types of granular, again, blocking and tackling.
What do you think? So what do you think's holding us back, right? I mean, when we sit here and we talk about it, it seems pretty straightforward. Yeah, okay, you got to block and tackle, you got to do the training, you got to invest in your people. But like, what's keeping us from going all in?
So insight from national account sales, insight from some of my, engagements that I've done is that, listen, that's like the 14th or 15th floor in the hotel that's on fire. Okay?
Yeah.
We got plenty of other fires that are absorbing our most talented subject matter experts, resources, what have you. It's almost like, even when I go to a car wash, it's like I start at the exit end just to make sure, like, I don't have an immediate problem. Like, wait a minute, we got hydraulic oil all over this car. Yeah. Like, so, same thing there. You're assessing priority going, I need to figure out if I'm going to buy this chain of 12 car washes at a, 12-time multiple, like, is that really the future, Or building something or, I mean, tariffs, like, and I don't want to get into a whole political conversation, but if you're in construction now, right? Okay. So directors of construction, what they try to manage the hell out of are change orders and a moving completion date and a moving, project cost. Well, these guys are challenged with that because they're in the throes of that. And when you're in the throes of so many things, of course it's important. And yes, we want it desperately, like needed it weeks ago. But to pull in the stakeholders and come to a consensus. And I want to keep going back to Destiny and that thing, but she kind of mentioned that. And again, significant decision. I was at Sonny's when SAP was brought on board. Significant decision. So this is how you're going to business, So they take time and then they take resources, which, by the way, having been a part of a larger organization where we did an implementation and I led the CRM portion, I had to do that plus my job.
Right. Yeah. There's not more people. Yeah.
Right. And stakeholders know this. Exactly. And every stakeholder kind of toes the line of burnout with their people because it's like, we're growing. We're not slowing down, so we kind of need like this now. Like, what can we do to expedite it? That's why I think that if you're a consultant and if you can add value in our industry, you can probably be a plug and play resource. I definitely do that. There are clients that I have where it's like it's a couple month engagement to help their construction or real estate team design better site layouts or just something that they know they need traction on. They got to pick it up quickly. And how do I because I can't do it all, Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's that mix of what do you like you said, there's all these burning fires. Everything's on fire all the time. And it's super simple for us to be able to be like, I got to focus on this thing that's right in front of me. Like, I got to do the thing that's right here because it's broken and I have to fix it and da-da-da-da. But if we have not done the work to do the prioritization for what's important for our company and the culture we're trying to create and what we want to build, we're always going to be stuck down in those weeds and we're never going to do anything big and great. We're just not.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, we've had a couple of companies wave a white flag. I mean, like that's like this kind of can happen. I mean, listen, there's a lot of organizations that are striving and launching, you know, programs to attack this. I think those need to be applauded. I mean, we could start naming names. You know what I mean? I'll give a shout out to El Car Wash doing an LMS launch for their people. I mean, I got to be honest. That's what you got to do. That's awesome that they're doing it. So not everybody is in this bucket kind of deal. You know what I mean? I would say this, those that are growing, what I've observed is that this isn't quite matching what units they have in the ground, what staff they have in the ground. They're like, okay, we're starting to separate. Be careful with that. Now would be a great time to kind of like, let's try to implement some stuff to support the requirement. That's where, you know what I mean? I mean, that's like, so I don't know. I mean,
that's a huge one, Jeff. I think bringing the whole thing full circle, right? We started this conversation talking about how things have changed and how it's created a little bit of a gap because we've lost some people who had a lot of really excellent knowledge to share. And the only way to get that back is to recreate it. And the way we're going to do that is by putting in these systems, getting that infrastructure in place, doing the training so that we're bringing people on, so that we're getting them excited about staying in the industry. And they can become the leaders of the future that are going to kind of reload this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. No, listen, they're getting some of the same at-bats I got at Sonny's during exponential growth. They're getting that in the field, in the real world. It might be a little bit more trial by fire than necessarily like great incubation and just good mentoring because there's just so many great folks around. I mean, like, you know, having said that, there's a period of time where, you know, they're going to be like, they know what they know because they've lived it. You know, they've had enough of at-bats, enough time. It's just, you know, we're coming off it's an interesting thing. You've had this expansion. You've had these people fall off. There's this period of time. And so, you know, I'm kind of curious. I think the tariffs and the interest rate being high, like 2025 into 26, you know what I mean? Here we go. It's like, I don't see this changing. It is going to be your ground game and how well you're developing and mentoring and then executing, you know what I mean? Because listen, EBITDA is a real thing, shrinking margins, competitive intrusion. You know, not every portfolio that I saw had phenomenal units, not even close. Mm-hmm. And the buyer today, because of this interest rate, to underwrite it's going to value them differently. And so exit strategies are now getting delayed. But that's M&A everywhere, potentially, depending on industry. So, you know, some of this is kind of like just sort of the circumstances at play. And again, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Some of the continued consolidation, I think, is just fascinating from a case study perspective. There's 2 chains over 500 car washes.
Which is unbelievable when you really think about it.
Never happened in our industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm a 4th generation, and I'm sitting here kind of looking back going, well, those folks never did that.
Yeah.
But we did.
All of these great people never got to there. Huh.
Not to say that you can't do it. It's just only been done by one group. Now there's a second group. Yeah. I mean, just plain and simple. If you go 10 years back, look at the top 50 operators versus the top 50 operators today from a unit count perspective. I mean, it is what it is. It says it right there. So that part is, so I do believe there is still phenomenal opportunity either to work your way up through a large organization because the amount of work that they spin off is fantastic. It's a great. I got a buddy of mine who worked with me. Love him. He's got an opportunity now that, he's a great cerebral car wash guy, so he'll do well, and so he's going to learn because he's going to get some stuff that he hasn't seen before. You know what I mean? And so, but that's how you learn. And being with those groups, that opportunity exists. And so, for somebody who wanted to really make a career out of it, there is no better situation than this now. This is the best it is. You've got a real shot. And again, the longer this highest interest rate and potential tariff, situation stays, I think there'll be more affordable portfolios that come available. And then you think, even from a smaller, whether it's a family office, wealthy investor group can back some of these guys, gals, with this type of experience, which is a phenomenal experience for them. And they actually would be equipped to handle it because they've had the at-bats. They would never have had the at-bats had we hadn't had this growth. So there's a lot of ways to again, I think just because of, how long my family's been doing this is all I've ever seen is evolution. So when you I'm embracing it, if you will. You know what I mean? There might be aspects that aren't, right for me, but I get it. And I think for people like I've mentioned, some of my friends, they've got more opportunity now because of it. And I think that's phenomenal. And they're the right people. You know what I mean? Because they've spent the time to learn and they can teach.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece. I think that's what's going to be so fun to watch the next several years is how will things swing back, right? We've swung, the pendulum always swings, it always comes back. How many of those people who are having these great opportunities at these larger organizations now are going to be able to become great operators at their core and then get those opportunities to then build their own great businesses and kind of extend that. So I think that's going to be super fun.
I definitely think that is more than possible and kind of more of a foregone conclusion. Again, the retail side, strong.
Yep.
The margins are there. Memberships only made it more, resistant, resilient, like weather. And, it's still a great business. Now, the flip side is everybody from a municipality has caught on. And if you think that car washing had a bad name before, and yet the Taj Mahals we're building are better than they've ever built. So we are, and actually, not to poo-poo the washing a car in a driveway, which I never do, never will do, totally against. Go to your professional car washer, support them.
Yes.
Is that I still believe it's the best place to wash your car. I think it's the best place, the safest place, and I really would love to see, a natural resource like water be used somewhere differently. You know what I mean? It's so I think there's longevity here. It's just never going to change from being a ground game. You gotta be boots on the ground, and you gotta see, and then hopefully have had the at-bats or the education to understand what you're looking at. Because from an equipment perspective, you can make it super difficult looking at a tunnel to understand what you're looking at. I could put about 4 different water sources in an equipment package and have you try and diagnose what the potential issue could be, and you'd be there for days. You know what I mean? Car washing can be very sophisticated and less sophisticated. Always going to be sophisticated. And some of the packages that I see, most customers don't own their own wash strategy where they have span of control, where they really go, no, here's how we wash a car. So as an equipment provider, we're not asking you, we're telling you this is how we do it, where they own it. And so what you procure is what you maintain. I've done hand washes. Not a whole lot to maintain there. Yeah. I've done, $1 million equipment packages. There's a whole lot to maintain there. So the point is you're making, this is definitely a common trend I see 100% out there. Making decisions without the benefit of downstream vision of what you're going to run into. And so, when we start talking about repairs and maintenance, I'm like, yeah, but what you're missing is the labor component that's going to that versus training your people. So then you got to go like, how important is it to the overall, what we're after here? And so, again, these are conversations that we could have for, but this is what I see all the time. And you're trying to, there's just a lot to try to bring somebody who's only been doing it for so many years and hasn't had that level of like experience because, listen, you're looking at a pipeline of like 14, 15 car washes. You're going to procure like $20 million worth of equipment. You kind of need to know what you're up to. You know what I mean? Because, and I don't mean it like that. I just mean it from like all the back end support you need.
Yes.
Where are you going to buy your parts from?
It takes a lot to stand that up. For sure.
100%, especially when you're not coming in with crews like your own, and so that's where you don't want to pump the brakes as much as you want to create an awareness and create an action plan and start like that's like the scope of works that I do. I mean, that's what we do. They got their hand up going, okay, we need a little help. We're trying to figure it out. And a lot of it is giving the confidence that, yes, you're right. You do need to develop this. And, I can bring in others who've done it and, you can talk to them and they can share stories with you and you can feel more confident. But like the scope of the work is actually the work that needs to get done. Then it's just a matter of how we get it done and how quickly we can get it done to get you supported where you need to be. And so that's where I say, we're always going to be working on that, Yeah. So.
Well, the good news is like you said, we're always evolving. We are
always evolving. We're always evolving. And I think the advent of new technology, chemistry has come a long, long way. I think what's interesting is like, it's hard to be in the car wash business without being like a water specialist. And I liken it to like organic dough versus non-organic dough. And so I've operated with softeners and without softeners. And so what a difference. I mean, depending on how hard water is, 1 to 2 grains is not too bad, but I had some sites that were like 4 and 5 and, 42 cents in chemical down to like 28 cents in chemical. And I put a lot of chemical in a car. So you were just able to do more. And yet the bond to the car was better. It's just like, I just think that the evolution aspect is so, now we're seeing a lot with CRMs, rinse, damp. And I think that's 100%. What's interesting with those types of things is, you got independent pieces of software.
Yeah.
And so by nature, like, what's the big deal? It's like, yeah, well, look inside the rest of that company. They got software all over the place. You know what I mean? And then they start acquiring different places. They've got different software. Like, the integration is a significant, like, wait a minute. Yeah. We need project managers. We need a plan. Like, and that's where not everything you decide today is backward compatible from what was just a year ago. We just made that decision a year ago. You're telling me we're going to go back? Like, I don't know that we can do that. And so, it's, and CapEx is a significant, like, every year we got to figure out, are we redoing the asphalt and striping? Right. Like, we got to reinvest in these assets. Let me tell you. So my location, in its last year, washed over 300,000 cars. So this is a really busy site. Yeah, that's great and all, right? But if you've ever watched Bar Rescue, when they stress test out the restaurant,
yeah.
Well, when you're 365 stress testing your restaurant out, like, it wears stuff out. And, it starts to look old. And yet it's not old. But you're doing multiple years of volume, what we used to do, in, a year. And so even that part is a little like, be careful what you wish for. Because that has its own requirement. So, it's evolving. It has these requirements. I'd love to see this next few years, 5 years, go fast for those subject matter experts to catch up and be leading regions or potentially, smaller organizations where it makes sense. And then I would feel better about like what the customer is going to experience.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, I go to a lot of car washes, and some are good, some are not so good, and even the good ones can have a kind of a bad day. That's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just you want the retail side of it to be strong. So anyway,
Nice. I love it. Well, we could sit and talk about this for probably days on end, but I do have just one last question for you.
yes.
And this gets back to really just more about the human side of this podcast, which is that we are all people at the end of the day. So I'm curious, Jeff, what's a win for you, big or small, that we can celebrate with you? Personal or professional?
Well, I mean, I think a win for me is, my daughter just competed in her first horse show. She's 12.
Oh,
So
nice.
to see, her, that's like, I grew up playing baseball. That was like I loved it. And so, when your kid has something like that, naturally, like I want her to go play golf or softball or like, you know what I mean? She's like, I'm just going to ride a horse. You're like, okay, I didn't see that one coming. So, but through the eyes, of her, you're like, those things are just amazing. I don't know what to tell you. So, I'm 48. Some of this is less about me and more about my people. So I love it when my daughter's like, I got second place. So.
Yeah, dude, I love that. I love it. It's so fun when you get to see your kids or just other people in your life like find the thing for them.
Yes.
Because they light up in a way that they just glow.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Even if it's for a period of time.
Yep.
Your enjoyment during that time brings me joy that I didn't know I could get. You know what I mean? Naturally, I have a 12-year-old. I've been getting it for somewhat 12 years, but you know what I mean? So it's like, it's a win.
Yeah, but it's always different, man. It's always different, right? It's like, oh, okay.
For sure.
And for me, I've got 3 kids, varying ages. Our youngest is 10.
Okay.
But for me, it's like as you see them progress over the years, and you see when they finally find their thing, and then they're doing the thing, and they're putting in the work, and they're getting better at it, and then they get the payoff where they actually see the reward from that hard work. That's the thing where you're like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
No,
and actually like embracing their struggle.
Yeah.
It's okay to struggle. Like you've never ridden a horse before.
You're gonna fail hard.
Yeah. Right. And so it's like, almost explaining like, hey, guess what? Life's full of struggles. Yeah. So it's about how you try and persevere. So like, you want to quit? We want to keep going.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's push you to that point and go, you want to keep going? Okay, well, we got to, keep trying, keep working on it. And ultimately, success, breeds success.
Mm-hmm.
In trying to position, we're talking about human capital and ultimately like, trying to grow human capital. Setting them up for success, whether it's your kid, whether it's a friend, whether it's a, coworker, or you're a boss and, they're your direct report. I mean, that's part of the obligation. Like, let's try to get people better. I mean, your podcasts, by and large, in the body of work, have been all centered around that. That's why I'm here today. You know what I mean? So it's just for us and what we're talking about, it's a good win to see my daughter have gone through some struggles to get to a point where, she can celebrate a victory. That to me is like, it's a great victory.
Well, I'm excited for you and for her. And for more wins in the future. I'm super, super pumped.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, Jeff, we'll have you back on. We've got more things to talk about always as it relates to car washing, and specifically, I think we're going to be talking for years about talent development. But thank you so much for spending some time today sharing a little bit of your story.
100%. Thank you for having me. I was super excited to do it, so thank you.
Hey, friends, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, make sure that you do all the things: subscribe, like, rate, review, share it with your friends. If you want to make sure you never miss an episode, you got to sign up to get on the newsletter list for the Better Car Washing Everywhere distribution chain there. You can do that at mkwinmedia.com. And last thing, but the most important thing, whatever you're doing today, when you're out and about and you're living life and you're doing your work, take a minute just 1 minute, and tell somebody in your life what kind of impact they're having for you. It'll make all the difference in the world in their day. So, friends, until next time, we'll see you soon.